Hello, everyone. This is Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I'm Sal Maiorana from the Democrat and Chronicle in Rochester, beat writer covering the Bills for 4 decades. I have a guy with me today, Luca Evans from the Denver Post, who I'm pretty sure wasn't even alive 4 decades ago. Is that true, Luca?
That's true. That's true. Right. 25. Yep.
Oh man, I remember
Man,
those days.
poor.
I remember
Wow.
those days. Actually, I was 28 by the time I got on the Bills beat. So you're doing a hell of a job if you're already there at this point. So congrats
Just
on
lucky
that,
to be
man.
there. Lucky to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a crazy year. Crazy year to hop on the train too. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll share this with you, Luca. My first 4 years covering the Bills were the years they went to the Super Bowl.
Oh
So my
man.
first 4 years were Super Bowl trips. I'm pretty sure I'm the only beat writer in history that had that scenario because
Wow.
nobody else joined the Bills beat that year and went 4 straight years. So maybe you can match that in the next 4 years to come. You got a pretty good team out there.
I don't think the Broncos would I don't think that would be the ideal situation for the Broncos to go to four straight and never come away with one. But
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's a heck of a matchup though.
Yeah, it is. So we're going to get into it here. Look, you weren't on the beat last year. The Broncos came up to Buffalo, and that was a Broncos team that probably wasn't ready to meet the moment, especially with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. Obviously, Peyton's a great coach, but they weren't quite ready to come to Buffalo in the wild card round and beat the Bills, who were a legit Super Bowl contender, obviously, like they have been for several years. But this year, things are different. There's no joke that Denver won 14 out of 17 games and dethroned those arch nemesis of the Bills Chiefs finally after what it's nine or 10 years, whatever it's been.
Decade,
This
yep.
is a legit, yeah, this is a legit team out there in Denver. And there's no Bills fan that should be, waltzing out to the Rocky Mountains this week thinking that the Bills are going to roll this team because I don't see that happening at all. Give me your initial thoughts on what has happened with the Broncos this year. How have they gotten to this level pretty quickly here?
It's been a season of fingernail biting and leg bouncing and just pure stress here in Denver. And yet, as you mentioned, that winning 14 out of 17 is no joke at the end of the day. There's kind of a looming national narrative around the Broncos, just given the trend and the flavor of how they've won some of these games that they're frauds, and they've kind of used that to their advantage, sort of underdog mentality at times, if you will. And it, they just know how to close and win games in the fourth quarter. They have a quarterback in Bo Nix, who's been in plenty of those situations now, even though he's only 25 in his second year. Led the league in 7 game-winning drives. They have a defense coordinated, coached by Vance Joseph, that really can hang with any team in any given moment. The pressure that they're able to generate, the secondary that they have, their run defense up front, they are capable of just giving the offense enough of a chance to win. And time again, Bo Nix and Sean Payton have shown that they can close games. Now there's plenty of just kind of potholes in the road that they've been able to swerve and avoid or run over and then patch the tire and kept rolling. But this is a team, I think, if they can hang with Buffalo, 1-score game heading into the fourth quarter, and then things will get really, really interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about that because Bo Nix, I watched enough of him, the game tape and everything else. It's the inconsistency is still a thing with him, and it was
Yep.
last year as a rookie. But you expect that as a rookie, that has continued this year. I mean, he had a very nice season. There's no one that's going to deny that. But there is the inconsistency that's plagued him, and like you referenced, for whatever reason, he finally figures it out in the fourth quarter, and the 7 game-winning drives is something that's really impressive, especially in this league. That's a hell of a thing to do. So something happens along the way, but what have you seen with him? Why has it started for him? So many games he starts inconsistently, and then slowly but surely they get things figured out.
Just a season of watching him, like he's such a rhythm player. He sort of finds pockets, falls into it, falls out of it. A lot of it, I think, is just kind of the continued, evolution of sort of working within Sean Payton's system. And I would say from, they had a bye in November, and from about November on, he just, the stats, the efficiency, passer rating haven't really shown it, especially the last 2 games of the year, which are, kind of unique in and of themselves. But he sort of hit another level in terms of how he was operating, just him seeing the field, being more decisive. Like one of his, sort of, I would guess, inconsistencies, as you put it, throughout the year was just whether, a lot of times he escapes the pocket a little bit too quickly. Like they love his ability to throw on the run, to make decisions on the move. But in my mind, he's best, when he's making controlled decisions. It's like it's like when a train's on the tracks as opposed to veering off of it. Like and a lot of times, I think early in the year, there were, you could almost see the clock in his head a little bit too much of, do I stand in here? Do I try and escape? Almost the happy feet concept. And just, again, since November, I think he's been a lot more decisive in those situations. I think the Broncos have started to incorporate a little bit more under center and bootleg type of stuff to get him sort of, making those decisions on the move. And I think, there's been a lot on his shoulders. I mean, he led the league in pass attempts this year. Part of that is by design. Part of that is, J.K. Dobbins, their running back, who was producing really well going down midseason, and then him having to shoulder a little bit more of the load. So there's going to be a lot on him this game. I think, he only threw the ball 22 times this last year. There's going to be a lot more on him on Saturday.
I looked at, you look at his pressure numbers, and, the 22 sacks, I think it was 680 dropbacks, which is pretty amazing. I mean, last year for Allen, it was 14 sacks, but part of it, from what I've gathered, is that he's very good at escaping the pressure, but when he's under pressure, he's, not always right. He's got a 48% completion percentage, I think. Right. And a lot of guys, obviously every quarterback, their numbers drop when they're under pressure, but his definitely seem to sink to a level. Is that accurate?
Well, I think a lot of it is because you watch him throughout the year, and he, his sack avoidance is something that Sean Payton loves, has loved about him since he's come out of college. And B is, you have this balance of avoiding negative plays, and Sean Payton views sacks as negative plays, but at the same time, maybe you're not hanging in there and seeing a throw or this or that. And there's been that kind of consistent. And I think a lot of times his numbers under pressure are so bad because he will escape, and he's very good at throwing the ball away at the last minute, or, skidding it or grounding it or something. And I think that affects his completion percentage. But overall, the body of work, there's something to that, certainly, because he is, if you talk to folks who know him, like I was talking to his quarterback trainer a while back, he's a lot more as instinctual player. He's a lot more Mahomes than he is Drew Brees necessarily. Like he's an escape artist. Like he plays backyard ball a lot of the time, but it's just, kind of that he's still a young quarterback and sort of trying to figure that out. But again, November on, I think he hit a little bit of a different level in terms of reading that.
So in terms of their offense now, look, everyone knows you run the ball against the Bills. Pretty much every team has been able to do that.
Yep.
And that's also partly why you look at the Bills. They have the number one pass defense by stats. There's context there. Teams can run the ball. They don't have to throw the ball too often against Buffalo. So in this game, are the Broncos equipped? I know they've got a really good offensive line. Are they equipped without Dobbins? Like you said, RJ Harvey is probably their main guy, I guess. Are they equipped to run the ball against the Bills, keep Josh Allen off the field, and win the game this way or that way?
Inconclusive. I would say on paper, probably not. At times, they've used kind of the quick passing game as sort of a substitute, or the screen game as a substitute for the run game. This is just a huge spot for RJ Harvey, who, he's second round rookie. He's such a dynamic player when the ball is in his hands, and his ability to run guys over, make guys miss in the open field. Like when he has space, he's tremendous, but it's been a consistent thing of him throughout this year. They really liked his vision, coming out of the draft, but he just doesn't seem to kind of choose the right hole or cut back at the right time, especially kind of between the tackles or in outside zone stuff. And that's, just the efficiency hasn't been there for their run game the same way that it was when they had J.K. Dobbins. So RJ Harvey's still going to get his touches. To me, I expect a good amount of work for Jaleel McLaughlin, who's been there for, a couple of years now and has been, frankly, one of their most efficient players over the last 3 games. It's just a matter of, when he's in the game, he's touching the ball. So is he going to get a legitimate workload or just kind of be a change of pace guy? I don't see, the Broncos are not equipped in their current state to run the ball 35 times for 150 yards, with the backfield that they have. I do think you could see a lot more, design stuff for Bo Nix, which we've kind of seen in fits and starts this year. Like he's very good in those situations. So it'll be interesting to see that, because I'm not sure that I don't think they're equipped in their current state to exploit kind of that weakness.
All right.
Fully.
Passing game, we know about Cortland Sutton. We've seen him a lot, and he's a terrific player. Give me somebody, because the Bills, I don't know that the Bills are going to travel Christian Benford with Sutton. I mean, they might, and they've done that in games before. I don't know that that'll happen this week, because one of the reasons is Trey White has been surprisingly very good this season. You saw what happened last week. He had a great game against the Jaguars. So I don't know if Benford will be on Sutton specifically. I think they're going to stay on their normal sides. So if that's the case, beyond Sutton, what are the passing game weapons that Nix will utilize that Bills fans should be paying attention to?
Well, there's the second year receiver Troy Franklin, played with Nix at Oregon, had a pretty solid season. I think 65 catches, 709 yards, if I'm remembering correctly. And the wide receiver utilization in Sean Payton's offense is so, if you're a fantasy football player and you're drafting any receiver on the Broncos, it's just, it was a nightmare, I'd imagine, because there's so much personnel shifting.
Sort of like the Bills receivers, Luke.
Yeah, no, that's what I've gathered. Yeah. And, so a lot of it is game plan specific. To me, I from what I gather, and the way that the Broncos talk about the Bills defense, it's a lot of kind of a good job overall of keeping things underneath, and maybe not necessarily taking the top off. I mean, Bills fans will recognize Troy Franklin from touchdown catch in the first quarter, last year, and certainly he's capable of those big plays. He and Bo Nix have been in a little bit more rhythm on kind of the deep ball recently. But for me, the guy that I would look for is Pat Bryant, rookie receiver out of Illinois, just kind of, banged up, had a really scary concussion towards the end of the year. But when he's been healthy, he's very quietly kind of, it's a consistent 5 targets, 40 yards a game, at least for him. He's fearless over the middle. He's starting to sort of, you see him a little bit in kind of the Michael Thomas, role that Sean Payton really just kind of exploited when he was with the Saints. So I look for him to certainly get kind of a few targets with how it seems they think the Bills will play them. There's also Evan Ingram, who, again, has just been kind of all over the map, since he signed as a free agent. He'll get a few targets and then RJ Harvey is a weapon kind of coming out of the backfield in the passing game. But to me, I think Pat Bryant could have a pretty big impact in this one.
Okay. All right, so let's flip sides now, because this is the matchup that is probably going to decide the game. Denver's got a great defense,
Yep.
and Josh Allen's pretty good. So it's going to come down to, I think that's really where we're going to see the difference in this game. So in terms of the Broncos defense, the Bills are number one in the league in rushing. That didn't matter last week against the number one rushing defense. Jacksonville shut down James Cook. I think the difference here, though, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, Jacksonville's a little bit bigger up front, and that was a difference thing. Denver has a defensive line very similarly built to the Bills, undersized. They like athletes up front. So that, I think, is going to be interesting. The Bills have a really good offensive line with some big people. Do you think that is going to be a key in this game to whether the Bills are going to be able to run the ball against Denver's really good run defense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there are a few guys for Denver, DJ Jones, the nose tackle, Malcolm Roach, kind of rotational in there, Eni Wazirike, who really, like, their jobs are to bottle up the run in the trenches up front. They know that, to make the game ugly pretty much. And they take pride in that. And this is the biggest game of the year for them in that regard. They've, for the most part, been able to do it, at a high level all season. And I think a lot of it is going to come down to also sort of the impact that Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper have off the edge, being able to kind of win their block and set the edge against James Cook and in the run game, and with everything that Josh Allen can do. And then you have, also Denver's linebackers. Alex Singleton has had a really good year against the run. Dre Greenlaw is back, injury-plagued year. So they know, the stakes of this matchup. Like Nick Bonito told me a couple days ago, like, this is big boy football. They know Buffalo's gonna try and run the ball. And I do think that they are, they don't have 300, 320 just monsters kind of, up front, or that sort of all pro, nose tackle, but they have some legitimate difference makers. Zach Allen has been terrific all year, of course, all pro year for him. So they're equipped. My question is just, to me, it's just, are they, what is Vance Joseph going to do in situations where, because their linebackers are susceptible in pass coverage, their safeties too. And so is Vance Joseph going to do, going to run out a lot more heavy or base looks, to try and stop the run? Or is he going to try and throw in more nickel to, obviously a little bit more defensive back heavy stuff, to, try and contain Bills tight ends, because that's been a problem for the Broncos all year. Like, there's a lot of really interesting wrinkles to this.
Right.
So yeah.
Are they a stack box team? Do they usually play kind of a base? They don't stack the box too often from what I've seen, right?
No, they trust their guys up front for the most part. They're pretty nickel. They're nickel heavy, for sure. There's a lot of Jaquan McMillan, Jade Barron, their rookie corner, has gotten a good bit more run in the last couple of weeks. So I think he could kind of play a pretty big role, because he's a good tackler and he can also cover tight ends. So yeah, no, for the most part, I wouldn't, but they do run, pretty heavy doses of it's really game plan specific. Like, there are times against the Chiefs earlier this year, I think it was the Chiefs, where they just kind of dared them to run the ball and just play nickel the whole game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Okay. You mentioned tight ends. The Bills best way, at least my opinion,
Yep.
to attack through the air is to use their tight ends. They don't do it nearly enough, especially given all the weakness they have at the receiver position. I mean, you see Khalil Shakir's numbers, and okay, it's a decent year, but Luca, you're not going to see a ball that travels 3 yards down the field with him. Everything is going to be right at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And it's just, can he make the first guy miss, break a tackle, and get 6 or 7 yards? That's Buffalo's passing attack. And it is crazy when you've got a guy like Josh Allen. It's maddening is what it is, that they can't push the ball downfield. If they're going to do it, Brandon Cooks has stepped in the last 2 games he's played. He skipped the Jets game. And that's the guy that they were hoping that they acquired. He was able to get downfield for a couple plays. But the key to me, and you mentioned it, it's going to be the tight ends. Dalton Kincaid, who has been injured, and their usage of him is also been maddening. He doesn't play a lot of snaps. And then there's Dawson Knox. I think that's where the Bills are going to need to rely in the passing game. Tell me how the Broncos are going to be able to handle that and what's going to happen there, do you think?
But the first thing, I'm sure you've covered this 5 billion times. What happened? What's going on with Keon Coleman? Like what happened there?
First of all, I'll tell you exactly. He's just not that good. They whiffed on the evaluation. He was a guy who made a bunch of contested catches at Florida State because he's big and physical. But why was he making contested catches? Because he couldn't get open in college. So how was that going to change in the pros? It's exactly what's happened with him. He just can't get open. Now he's going to have to play. He's going to be on the field a lot when they go 11 because they have nobody else to put out there. But I would be very surprised if Denver is going to be all that worried about Keon Coleman. So that's what's happening with him. Get back to the tight end coverage. What are they going to do?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because that's the area that they've had issues with all year in the passing game, really for 2 years now, against just kind of matchup threat tight ends or running backs in the passing game. I think to me, you could reasonably see, they've utilized Pat Surtain as, really the primary guy. Like when they played the Colts earlier this year, they had Tyler Warren. They really used a lot of Pat Surtain on Warren. And to me, I could see that happening with Dalton Kincaid when he's in the game. Because you have some guys for Denver and Jaquan McMillan and Jahdae Barron and even Riley Moss on the outside who can or quicker guys who can, reasonably check Shakir. And I think that would make the most sense from kind of Vance Joseph's standpoint. I think also this is why I see a lot of Jahdae Barron in this game was only played, about 30% of Denver snaps this year, but they took him in the first round for a reason. I think at times he's kind of been that tight end guy, third down, dime packages, and I think he could reasonably play in a lot of bigger nickel packages and, match up against Kincaid, Knox, etc. I was talking to Justin Strnad, Broncos linebacker, in the locker room yesterday about this. He mentioned he said Jackson Haas he thought was one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL already as a rookie. So they're aware of him, which is I mean that's a heck of a room. So I think it's gonna be about for Vance Joseph making sure that Alex Singleton, Dre Greenlaw, when they're in the game, are not, a lot of times they sort of play with leverage concepts in man, if they have outside leverage and the guy's running an in-breaker, it's not necessarily their fault. But I think you just have to put them in non-adverse situations the best you can in that regard.
He's not much. Is he much of a blitzer? Man, I don't recall
Vance?
what the numbers are. Yeah, do they blitz a lot or no?
They
kind of trust their four-man, right?
They do. They trust their four-man, but they will dial up a lot of, third down, especially. Vance Joseph's really good at dialing up, inside linebacker blitzes, nickel blitzes, et cetera. So I think Actually, I don't want to throw a stat out there that I'm not sure of, but they blitz. Their blitz percentage is high. It just kind of looks different at times because he'll bring a consistent 4-man, 5-man. Like that's an identity. That's a part of their defense because they trust their secondary so much to cover. So
right. All right, this is Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel for all your betting needs. That's the place you have to go. We're going to wrap this up, Luca, with this. I was reading some of the Denver clips, through the week, and it looks like motivation is definitely a thing for the Broncos. They even though they came up here as a heavy underdog last year, losing by 24 points certainly wasn't what they wanted to happen. So sounds like there's been some talk about they remember that game. And there's a little bit of motivation now that they've got the Bills in their place. Just kind of address as we close out here that aspect of how much that might come into play during the game Saturday.
Yeah, I think it kind of has to. I mean, they ended their season last year, and you get a second crack at them with a different roster and a different setting on your home turf. And there are guys, like Talanoa Hufanga, the safety they signed in the offseason, who's going to play a big role in this game. And he said point blank, like, I have a chip on my shoulder that, I wasn't here last year, but this is the team that knocked us out last year, like sort of taking up the mantle a little bit. And I think absolutely there's no, to me, that you get the sense in the locker room, it's not like this is a bad blood thing or what have you. The Broncos, just staff, players, so much respect for Josh Allen and the Bills in general, the way that they talk about him. But this is another, like, when you kind of came into this season and thinking about, okay, what are the things that they need to do as an organization, as a roster to get to the top of the AFC? It was, how do we build, an offense and a defense more specifically to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and win those matchups. And obviously this is the next and a huge step in that. So there's been so much talk. The betting lines have seemed to swing back and forth. There's been so much talk around, out here at least, on the Broncos being underdogs, and
which surprised me. I was a little surprised by that.
It's just, which I guess is fair, but to me that's all manufactured. Like, they won 2 more games than the Bills, and they have Josh Allen. Like, that's not, that's not an outlandish thing to me.
No,
but
you're
there's
right,
always, but Denver, there's this attitude in the locker room that I think Sean Payton has helped cultivate and been successful at, of nobody really thinks that we're here yet. We're at this level. We know we're here, but nobody thinks that we're at that level. And this is obviously the biggest stage yet to kind of show that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now, Bills fans do not like the Broncos this week, but they are very appreciative that you ended the Chiefs this year. That was great, because the Chiefs have obviously been a major thorn on the side of the Bills for way too long.
That was it was kind of like putting a dog down. It's just, there's not much, Kansas City was already on the rope. So, it was nice. But we'll see. Yeah.
All right, Luca, tell everybody where they can find your work and your socials and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, read our coverage. Myself, Parker Gabriel, on the beat, the Broncos beat over at the Denver Post. Check it out. Subscribe if you like. And I'm on Twitter by Luca Evans. So follow along if you want a Broncos perspective.
Well, I got you on my follow in my Bills list, so I'll be looking at your tweets all weekend. So keep me updated.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to thank you for taking some time out this morning out there in the Mountain Time Zone. We appreciate it. I'll see you out there at the stadium Saturday at some point. Mm-hmm. Bills versus Broncos, 4:30 Saturday afternoon, CBS. Tony Romo, of course, the Bills' #1 broadcaster. This is now, believe it or not, Luca, I think this is the 11th consecutive Bills playoff game that crew has done. It's incredible.
Oh, the fans, Buffalo
Great.
fans must just love that. Yeah.
And the fans have grown really tired of Tony Romo. But
Yeah,
that's
I
when
can
you
imagine.
find the game, everybody, Saturday afternoon. So we're going to wrap it up. This is Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I am Sal Maiorana. He is Luca Evans, and we will both see you at the game on Saturday. Have a great day, everybody.